You're listening to the Good Food CFO podcast, where we focus on financial strategies for building a profitable food business. I'm your host, Sarah Delavan. On today's episode, I am joined by Amos Valenti, co-founder of Pittston Ketchup Co. It's likely a little known fact to those not born and raised in the area, but Pittston, Pennsylvania is affectionately known as the tomato quality capital of the world. With the discovery of anthracite coal in the late 19th century, the area became a bustling haven to European immigrants who soon discovered that a combination of rich, river-fed soil and a unique soil chemistry made for some of the best-tasting tomatoes in the country. Farmers got to work growing tomatoes, and easy access to big cities via the railroad eventually earned Pittston its title. Many years later, the idea for Pittston Ketchup came to be on a trip to Washington. While visiting friends, Amos noticed the plethora of locally made and branded products, as well as the residents' passion to buy local. He texted his friend and now co-founder 2 words, Pittston Ketchup, and a year later, the first bottle was made. Amos is sharing the story of Pittston Ketchup Company from idea to growing regional brand and sharing the lessons he's learned along the way. There are so many gems of wisdom in this conversation. I cannot wait for you to listen in. So let's get to it. Amos, you and I grew up in essentially the same hometown. That's what I'm going to call it. Maybe region is a little bit more accurate, but we're going to say same hometown. And I wonder if you could share with our listeners a little bit about what makes the tomatoes in the area so special, and then maybe where the idea to actually start producing Pittston ketchup came from.
We use Fermano's tomatoes, of course. They're
Okay.
a Pennsylvania company, and they're located just about an hour here southwest of us on the Susquehanna. So it's the same soil, and what makes it unique too is we have acidic soil in a lot of places, especially on the East Coast, and that was a result of the industrial era, and still how we manufacture energy today. So the lands and the earth now around here is a little more acidic than it would be in some places, and we just have really good soil. Up and down the eastern seaboard, so it's like kind of the right mix of all of the things from a standpoint, from science, everything that a plant needs, it has it right here, in addition to cooler nights and, warm, humid, hot summers, tomatoes like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking about that this morning before we hopped on our call together. It's like, Italy is known for its, tomatoes that are grown in volcanic soil. And out here in California, we've got, Paso Robles, where they also have really great soil, hot days, cool nights. And that happens in different areas around California. And it is the same. Pennsylvania has those hot, humid days, and then the nights can be cool and breezy and beautiful. And humans like that, and tomatoes like that.
For sure. And humans like tomatoes,
Yes. So you founded Pittston Ketchup Company with 2 other gentlemen. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Can you tell us who they are and what are the roles that each of you play in the company?
Sure. So Corey Golden, he is he's the guy I texted the Pittston Ketchup Company when we were sitting. I forget the name of the place, but it was in Astoria, Oregon, where we tried Camden's ketchup, which is made in Portland, of course. And he's the guy I texted because we had talked for years about starting a business or something. Again, out of the value, I guess, just to show it that, okay, this is what you need to do to start a business. And to show that too, it's not that hard to start it, right? To have the idea and to try to get it. So it was more to be an inspiration. So yeah, Corey Golden was, he was the first guy I texted. He has a background in finance, and he's got a big family. He's got four kids, and he's married, so he's constantly cooking. He makes really good food at the house and stuff. So he's actually our culinary guy too, who kind of spearheaded and developed the initial taste and profile and stuff like that. So it was an interesting process going through it. And then the second guy is AJ Sangrodochi. He's a lifelong friend who AJ's a gym teacher. So he has a lot of hands-on experience catering and just inside of the food business in general. So, it kind of complemented everyone's skills. And AJ and I have always tried to work on businesses and stuff like that. Because at the heart of the things, I'm an ideas man,
Okay.
So, that was just how it was. So we had, three guys kind of, who all just kind of wanted to do it. And then we did it. And then it was just a process of learning how to do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And you mentioned in a conversation we had previously, so you were traveling in Oregon, you tasted this Portland based ketchup, and you, maybe the three of you, but you for sure, you wanted to create something that was from your hometown that
Mm-hmm.
you could feel proud about, but that people would also connect to. And you
Yeah.
mentioned that there was sort of I'm going to use the word renaissance. I don't know if you use that word necessarily, but there was
Sure.
some financial support, right, happening in your hometown for people to kind of stick around and build businesses. And I love that. So can you talk a little bit about that? Is there anything you might want to share about what was happening in
Yeah.
Pittston?
Yeah. So, right, like we're from the same area. Okay. So it's gone up and down through
Mhm.
how many depressions and booms, and not many booms, let's face it. There was
Yeah.
one boom. Okay. And then it's been going downhill since. And then, with all of the other economic factors that you had, it just wasn't an attractive area. So you'd hear that people leave all the
Mhm.
time. They would leave. Um, if you want to do something, you have to get out of this area, because when you're from this area, it's funny. My brother says it, talks about all the times. There's like, there's big jobs and there's good jobs. Like,
Yeah.
you get a good job around here was like, you're making 20 bucks an hour, and you had your house, and it was a good job. And then a big job maybe was like at the city or something, for like uh, a municipal source or something. You work at
Yeah.
the sewer authority, man, that's a big job. You're
Yeah.
set.
There was definitely that list of jobs or places that you could get a job where, like, if you got in, that was
Oh man,
it was
right?
you were
You were
set for
like
life, you know?
potlatch, it was like some people talk about potlatch at Toby Hanna Army Depot. Like I was at Shot Optical.
Yeah.
It was a couple of old relics, but so what was happening though at the same time was there was money coming through all of rural. I don't want to say rural, but they did. It was part of a farm bill where the main streetscapes, where towns were able to apply for grants to get money to kind of upgrade their facades, kind of.
Mm.
And there was money for businesses and things like that. Nothing that we were able to take advantage of in the beginning, but you just saw something happening that was more of a focus on the community, whether it was good or bad. You had people had a desire to do something,
Yeah.
and so we thought we want to contribute to that in some way. And that's why, we always thought of what business could we start, what could we do, and we wanted to be a part of it. That was basically it. So like, we saw that there was something happening, and then it's just a new generation of consumers. We shop differently, we think differently, we have different attitudes about different things. And you saw a lot of the places that failed in the 90s, like the restaurants around here, because they were all competing, not working together.
Mhm.
So we wanted to be a part of that new and next kind of generation of people who were going to do things, as opposed to just saying, oh man, this area sucks. It's like, well,
Yeah.
what are you doing to try to make it any better? Like, everyone doesn't have to start a business, but like, if all you're doing is sitting around talking about how terrible an area is and how bad you have it, it's like, well, just shut up, because it's not doing any good for anyone.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a referendum on that too, that attitude. Um, so, we just thought, okay, and if we don't do it, right? If everyone leaves and wants to go to Colorado and smoke hash oil to live the dream, like, how's the area you're from ever get any better? So
I love it. I mean, I fall into that category of people where I was like, I just don't know what I'm gonna do here. And that was, I mean, when I lived in the area, I wasn't thinking about being a business owner. It never even crossed my mind. I imagined I
sure,
would like wear a suit and go to an office, and
right?
that would be what my life was like. And so I thought, wow, what am I going to do with my college degree that I have now? And I couldn't get a job in the area. I got a job out of college making like $19,000 a year. And I was like,
Wow.
this is not going to cut it. So I actually left to go to school, and my husband was going to film school. It wasn't my husband at the time, but I was like, my grandmother was even like, go see what other opportunities there are out there. But I take so much pride in businesses like yours and in people like you who are doing what you're doing back home. And I think that's why I'm so excited to have you here to finally, I mean, I have your ketchup in my refrigerator. I think I've had it there consistently for
That's
maybe
cool.
maybe 2 years now. My brother bought me my first bottle for as a Christmas gift. I reached out to you guys just to say how much I loved what you were doing, and you were kind enough to send me 2 bottles, and I've never been without it since. So
Nice.
I'm very prideful and very thankful for what you all are doing. So you mentioned a few minutes ago that you use tomato paste in
Mm,
your recipe. And I want to touch on that because as a former food buyer, and someone who works with small businesses, especially in the space of like wanting to do things sort of the right way, right? And
hmm
and from start to finish and to really do things differently. I think a lot of people launching a tomato or a ketchup business would say, we're going to buy fresh tomatoes and we are going to cook them down and start
Oh
from
yeah,
scratch, and it's going to
with
be
the
like
food
the
mill.
best. Yes. And then and, and then you're like, whoa, that's going to take a long time, it's going to
Yeah.
be really expensive, and maybe that's not the best use of our time. Was that the evolution for you guys? Did you start out with the fresh tomato idea, or did Corey say, whoa, whoa, whoa? As the culinary guy, I
Well,
can
there
tell
was
you
a
right now it's going to be too much.
well, so um, we all like so I was a food service director actually. I worked for a food
Okay.
service management company and have a lot of experience with food service myself too. But then my first kind of formal training was at a corporate place. I worked at TGI Fridays in Wilkes-Barre for years, and it was an awesome it was my favorite job, best job ever. And the training, right, uh, was intense, and I didn't realize at the time what was happening though. But as I was seeing, first in, first out, and I was
Mm,
seeing portion control, and I was seeing things broken down into recipes, and understanding that if you go to a TGI Fridays in Wilkes-Barre or Amarillo, Texas, that the Italiano has to taste the same way
right.
because it's made very specifically. Um, so that was kind of some of those things. Like, since we all had different experiences, we knew right from the beginning that like we had to be very consistent above all else,
Mm,
especially in a product like ketchup. Now you have that small batch element too, where it's like, okay, well, it's cutesy that they're like, well, this batch tastes a little different. We did try though, like our first incarnations of making things with the food mill, wanting to do it fresh, and it was a nightmare, and it just didn't work. Um, and we didn't want to use citric acid, not for any particular reason. I have nothing against citric acid. It's a wonderful thing, and it makes canning possible. It makes safe canning possible, really, to add some kind of acid in there to bring the pH down. So that paste was born out of needing consistency and not able to use tomato puree. Okay,
mm,
because most purees, at least Fermanos, this time it was important for us to have all of our ingredients coming from Pennsylvania. So to use there's only one company, you know, big company, Fermanos, that's canning their own tomatoes here and packing them, that we were able to use. So it was Fermanos tomato paste. There was no other way, for us. So we had like very specific and rigid requirements for ourselves, at the same time having to keep it local and having to, also be in our quality and uniform, kind of have it so it could be consistent.
Yeah.
So that's where the paste came from.
Okay. That makes sense. I think there's, as I was saying, so many people when they're just starting their business, they've got, this set of criteria that they really want to live up to. And eventually you find out in many cases either it's going to take just forever to produce and that may drive up your costs, or buying that, however many tons of tomatoes one night might need,
Oh my God.
it is a very expensive and logistically difficult kind of thing to do, and people get stuck on that sometimes. So I'm thankful that you shared that story with any business owner who's maybe launching a new product now and thinking or feeling frustrated about the fact that they can't do it exactly the way that they want to. I think it's you release yourself from a lot of frustration when you kind of open your mind to what's the next best thing if it's not working out exactly how we want it to.
Well, what I found, like, specifically for that, is that at every level we wanted to grow or
Mm,
make another step, you we had to give up some part of control.
right.
Whether it is the control over the process or the control over where it goes or the control over who buys it. And if you want to be from out of the kitchen to in another commercial kitchen to a co-packer, you have to be prepared to give up that control. And they can't call them sacrifices. People call
Yeah.
them sacrifices. It makes it sound like you're compromising your values in some way. you know
Yeah.
that's how it all ties in together.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about, because you mentioned like, the sort of the steps you take as you grow and needing to be able to do that. Are you guys processing, or should I say manufacturing or making the ketchup on your own? Or are you working with a co-packer? What does that look like for you now?
No, so right now we are still producing all the ketchup ourselves, and that happens, and we still do it in small batches. We make 300 bottles in a batch,
Okay.
or 350 bottles in a batch, or something like that. And we could do 2 batches in a day is a reasonable day. It's not super intensively hard work, but there's a lot of steps to making it that
Hmm.
it's very formulaic once we came up with the process of how to go through it, and that ensures our consistency. So we're still 100% doing our production and our distribution at this time, and that gives us the most control over the process now at the level we're at. We wouldn't be able to grow like really really big doing what we're doing, just because there's only so far we can go, and since we all work, there's only so much we could produce you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. So a couple of questions that I'm interested in asking. So number one, the kitchen that you utilize,
hmm
is that a kitchen that you rent? It's yours to go in and produce your ketchup whenever you want to, or is it an hourly setup? What does that look like?
It's an hourly setup, yes. It's the Carbondale Technology Transfer Center in Carbondale. It's an incubator kitchen. And, I know in the West Coast that is like, oh man, well, there have been incubator kitchens out here since 98, but like there was no incubator kitchen in Carbondale in 98. It
No.
just wasn't happening, uh, because people were still going for the good jobs and the big jobs, like that. Just the mindset and funding wasn't there. It was like, how do we save what we have, as opposed to thinking about different ways to encourage people to do things. So Carbondale, we're lucky to have that here, really
Yeah.
lucky, because the closest one is in York, PA. Because before we did that, we all have friends that have restaurants and things like that, and we tried working at some of these restaurants in the off shift, but we needed a place that we could just go in and do what we did and then leave,
Yeah.
go through our process and go. And it was too hard to do at a restaurant, be like, oh man, we forgot we have a catering event, you can't use it.
So your kitchen is, we'll say you rent it on an hourly basis. I assume you've got your, tomato paste and your other ingredients that go into it are delivered right to that kitchen. You're
hmm
producing it there. or you're bottling it there as
Yep,
well?
we bottle it there. We hot fill.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have, this is a number 7, which is polypropylene with an oxygen barrier. So number 7 is a polypropylene with an oxygen barrier. They classify as an other because it has more than one. It's not just polypropylene. It has the oxygen barrier. So that gives us an improved shelf life versus just regular polypropylene.
Okay.
And that's over 185 degrees, okay, is when we fill it, and that effectively sanitizes the bottle as well. And the bottles are clean to begin with. It's not like it's um, some of the process. So yeah, we have basically a scaled down version of what a big shop is doing. We bought a pneumatic filling machine. Like, we did the first batch of bottles we filled with like a pastry filler.
Oof. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was a nightmare. And still, we weren't selling them then yet. They were still like, giveaway things. Or like, this
Yeah.
is not going to work. And
Yeah.
then we bought a pneumatic filling machine. So like, we basically have, a very scaled down version of what these big guys do, because once the paste comes, it never touches our hand,
Right.
you know? So like, and that's the thing, to keep for safety and our procedure. It doesn't ever touch our hand. It goes from the cans into the kettle, and then from the filling machine, it's all stainless steel right inside of the bottles.
Yeah. And so you're set up now and you're operating almost like a co-packer is going to basically do the same thing, but on a much
Absolutely.
larger scale for you
Yep.
at some point in the future. So you all are doing your own distribution, and I know you work with some
hmm
restaurants in the area, and you also sell to grocery stores. So are you doing your production and then everything goes out for delivery? What does that schedule look like?
No, we definitely keep stock. Not a ton of it, um, but we need to keep it because, so with Garrity's, and it's kind of just so doing our own distribution too. We learned, so Garrity's, their arrangement with us is basically we go around and service the our spot, essentially. Like, we're right in the ketchup aisle, but it's
Okay.
on our responsibility to go around and make sure that they're stocked. Okay. And but Wegmans will call us and say, hey, we need an order.
Mm.
And they're like, we need 15 cases or 20 cases or something like that, and we have to have that in stock. So we keep probably anywhere from 25 to 60, maybe, depending on the type of the year, cases in stock. And every Friday is our delivery day. So that's when I go out on Fridays and I do the run. And, so then I keep the information, basically knowing. So now I have a pretty good idea what sells, how much it sells in the area it sells at.
Yeah.
So I don't have to be too redundant going back to the stores and stuff like that. But, that's kind of, where, being on our level, it wouldn't pay for us to go out, for me to be out there 5 days a week, because we're only at, 10 grocery stores, in
Right.
this level that we're at now. And restaurants is a whole other ballgame. You know, I worked in food service forever, and I was a food service director. We ordered all of our food from Feasers. Everything came from Feasers, and maybe you dealt with one guy for the dry goods.
Yeah.
Um, So restaurants is very similar. They call it US Foods. Maybe they get the liquor order, but then they have to, like, oh man, I got to order the ketchup too. Like, so adding an extra layer for them is hard, and we don't go after food service in that capacity. We are at probably about a dozen restaurants that carry us, and it's more marketing than
Mhm.
anything. Just because we're at a place and someone could try it. um, and then two, the places that we want to be at too. um, you know we don't want to be on every hot dog cart. We want to be a little bit exclusive, as far as places. Like, we've told people no, that, like,
Mhm.
sorry, it wouldn't be a right fit.
Yeah.
And mostly because I know that they're not going to want to pay the price, or they're not going to want to keep it refrigerated, or they're going to be marrying the bottles together. And it's like, no, guy, that's not how it works. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
So
I
keeping
think
that
that's a
control.
I think that's a great point, and that's another lesson that I think many small food business owners need to learn. It's like so many of us, and I was guilty of this when I owned my food business. It was like somebody wanted to work with us, even if it was, you know, they would want delivery, and I would be like, yes, we can make it happen, and we're just stretching ourselves too thin and not really making any money, like off of the relationship, potentially even losing money. And for many business owners, we got to go through that to realize that you can't say yes to everything, and you've got to be more selective. So I think,
Yeah.
you having realized that relatively early on, or even from the get-go, it's congratulations on that. And I think it's a good lesson for other people to learn if they're, listening to this conversation. Choose the right partners, even if you're small, even if it feels like you need to be making more money, even if it seems like you need, more
Yeah, right.
sales.
The people, that's why I said, like, we didn't intend to even start a business.
Right.
We weren't trying to start a business. Like, for as weird as that sounds, we weren't trying to say, like, all right, we're going to do it. Like, we just wanted to make this product, but making the product required the business.
Yeah.
We wanted to make something based in Pittston, and that's what we landed on. Ketchup is what it came to be. So it's not like, man, I can't tell you how many businesses I've already created in my mind.
This is what
And it was
happened to
funny
come
because
to
as soon as I
fruition.
said it out loud in the restaurant, I was like, the Pittston Ketchup Company. Like, Aaron was like, oh
Oh
God.
no.
Like, oh, here we go. Like, this is gonna be like some other random thing. But
Yeah. And we haven't touched on the fact that or maybe you mentioned it earlier, but I want to make sure that it's clear. The three of you all have full-time jobs. Pittston Ketchup
yeah,
Company is not, it's not paying you. You said earlier it's not paying your phone bills. I loved that. It's not paying any of
yeah.
your bills. It's
Doesn't
sustaining
pay the
itself.
cell phone bill. It pays its own cell phone bills,
That's
right?
good.
Like, Pittston Ketchup is like your teenager that
Yeah.
you have to support, but they manage, like, change their own diapers at that point. It's like, so yeah, we don't necessarily pay ourselves, um but it's all built into it.
Yeah.
So the money that we would historically be taking out as profit or as wages, we just put right back into it, and it allows us to keep it going and allows us to do things when we need to do them, even if
Yeah.
that means giving ketchup away, or in a situation um, where if we need to do it, or like sponsorships, we like to
Mm,
sponsor the Pittston Stoners soccer team, and give $250 to this lady over here because she's had something.
yeah.
Um, so it kind of work with people like that, because it was that's all it was about. It wasn't just like because we wanted to start a business just to start it. Like, it was to be active members in our community
Love that.
and to be able to do things.
Yeah. So we're talking a little bit about money now and the ability to, you're reinvesting the profits. Can we go back in time just a little bit? What you had this idea, you had AJ shaking his head and worried about what was to come next. And then at some point, I imagine you sat down and looked at the numbers and were like, is this something that we should do? What did that look like?
So it was more of just a collection of numbers for
Mm,
us. It wasn't like, oh man, this is how much money we need to make to make this happen. This is like, okay, what is the cap cost?
right.
What is the and what is this cost? What is that? We to
Yeah,
learn
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I didn't know what that was.
What
It's
is
just
it
like a thing
called?
you peel off.
Does it have a
It's
proper
it's an
name?
induction seal. Yeah, this
Okay.
is an induction seal. We didn't have to do that. We could have chosen a pressure sensitive liner or a foam liner, courtesy of Amcor, but we didn't. We didn't. We went with this specifically because it offers you the longest shelf life. Yeah, we learned how much of these individual things cost, and then what type of process to go through. Like, we didn't know I didn't know about hot filling before we started this, so
Right.
like we had to learn about all those things, but we learned about what each individual element of this costs. And then we had an idea of how much it all costs together, like as a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then how much all the ingredients cost to put inside of it. And that's when we had those requirements that we were working with Pennsylvania companies for our spices, work with Pennsylvania companies for our tomatoes. So we had these things that were building the other parts of the business, the parts of it that were going to make it special to us,
Yeah.
at least or unique or something, is that we were going to use it with these ingredients. And we were going to bring that element that you might find in California or in Portland 3 times over, but it wasn't in Pittston at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't that moment where we were like, man, is it going to make sense financially?
Right.
Because, I mean, then you have everyone telling you, like, well, Amos, how are you going to compete with Heinz? It's like, well, we're not competing with Heinz. That's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
first off, we can't. And then second, it's another kind of market. Heinz isn't selling craft ketchup,
Yeah.
if you want to call it craft ketchup, or you know what I mean? Heinz
Yeah.
isn't selling that. They're selling
Yeah.
Heinz.
So you have this collection of costs. So you understand at this point, like what one bottle, so to speak, is going to cost you to produce. And then from there, do you say, all right, let's do it? Or like, how did it
So
go
so
from a collection of
that's what
numbers to a
that's what
thing?
gets you back. That's where it comes back to, we didn't try to start a business.
Yeah.
So we weren't thinking about things like that at that point. Okay. We were just like, okay, how much does it cost, like to do this?
Okay.
Once we found all of those pieces, that's how much it costs to make 750 bottles of ketchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then out of that 750 bottles was the response, okay, and the reaction to it, and then the reception to it. And that's where we started actually thinking about, okay, does this actually work
I
as a
see.
business,
So
right?
it was
So
like you, so wait, so you all just agreed, let's put our money behind this or into this and
yeah,
produce 750
right.
bottles of
We're
ketchup.
like, let's try to turn $4,000 into $10,000.
Okay. Well,
Let's
that
see if
sounds
we
like a
could.
business kind of, or at least
Well,
a business
like it's like
proposition.
everything's a business, if you think about it. But it was like we weren't trying to start a business in the fact that we sat down and we crunched the numbers and we were like, all
Right.
right, this makes good financial sense,
Right.
because Corey's a financial guy, but he's not a ketchup company guy. Like he could tell you what money to invest in and what markets in Asia not to buy in.
Yeah.
But he in the same way as me, like we weren't ketchup guys. We didn't know food service from that angle. We didn't know what distribution was. We didn't know what grocery stores taking their cut. And you know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
we didn't know those things like going in. So we just thought, okay, let's make it, right?
Yeah.
See what happens. And then from there, it was like we were blown away because people were like, oh my God, this is awesome. And it was like, well, wait a minute. People like it. Can we actually make it? Like, can it be a thing?
Okay, so things go well with the first 750 and you start to think, okay, maybe we can turn this into something. And then you just keep making the ketchup and keep trying to sell the ketchup.
And at this point, we were still in what we called boutique retail shops, which were
Mhm.
these smaller places where, like the Chick Chick Marketplace was the first place. Our champions, they were like the first place because they have this cute little storefront over in 44. We were like, man, it's great because it went, the type of people who shop at the Chick Chick Marketplace were going to be interested in our ketchup because, like, you know the label and the taste and the
Yeah.
story and everything else that was behind it. And that's when those other things started to come into play. Like Pittston had a story, so like those other things, elements started playing into how we were going to turn this into a business more than just like how were we going to sell it at these smaller shops, you
Yeah.
know. So that's at that point, then grocery stores started coming into the equation, and that's where things started changing even more.
My vibe from you is like you don't want to be making the ketchup 5 days a
Nope.
week on your own, right? The next level for you guys probably looks like partnering with a co-packer or something.
Yeah, 100%. So that's what we're trying to do now, because we decided, like, like we didn't want to start a business in the beginning, and
Yeah.
we don't want to have to manage something and make ketchup every Saturday, and I have to go out every Friday and sell it and stuff like that, because that wasn't what it was about.
So you okay, so you're producing yourself, but next level would be working with a co-packer, and eventually I would imagine as you grow, it can't be you delivering to every location that
Exactly.
you're selling to. So distribution becomes a part of the future plan at some point too. Did you build all of those estimated costs into the numbers
We
early
did.
on? Yeah.
We
Alright.
did. So that was part of it, because we knew like that. So that all came in after the 750 bottle revelation.
Okay.
Okay, that first time. Then we started looking at things like that. You know, because we knew we wouldn't be able to deliver forever. We knew we wouldn't be able to manufacture forever. At least, so our labor cost that we factored in now becomes the manufacturing cost for a co-packer, and our distribution cost that we built in now then becomes the distribution cost for a distributor. Okay, and then one thing that we didn't know going into this is that some grocery stores actually charge for shelf space.
Mm.
Okay, like charge a person money, and it's very competitive. So they don't want to, it's not in a grocery store's business to keep some product on their shelf, that a valuable space where it could potentially be selling something else that could be making them money. So yeah, we built all of those things in that kind of thing to be able to say like, and then it's still at that point would be able to make profit at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like actual money back. You know.
I wanna key in on 2 things. Number 1, and I just wrote this down, is like you factored in labor costs. So even though you're not paying yourselves for the work that you are doing, you factored it
Hmm.
into the numbers. You took it into consideration after that 750 bottles when you did start thinking about it a little bit more like a business. You did a couple of things that I think are important to point out to people. It's number 1, like I said, you took labor costs into consideration and the cost, probably the time, and other factors of distribution, right? You took those into consideration.
Hmm.
And I think too, something that I'm keying in on here that I want people to take away from your story is that you really thought about, number 1, what kind of business do you want to have if you are going to have a business, right? You
For
knew
sure.
what you didn't want to do and what you did want to do. And you kind of planned it out, at least from a financial perspective, and like, here's how we don't want to be spending our days. Where I think as a lot of people dive in and say, we're going to figure this out as we go.
Yeah.
And I bring that up and kind of point it out for 2 reasons. Number 1, there's nothing wrong with diving in and figuring it out as you go, as long as you keep an open mind and you can make good decisions. But I think there is also a lot of value in creating a plan, maybe for a
Hmm.
year or 2 years or 3 years or even 10 years for your business, and working that plan. And I feel like that's kind of the path that you guys took. And I just think that it's really cool. And there's a lot of value that people can take away from how you structured your business. Um, so again, congratulations on taking this
Yeah,
approach.
thanks. And I think that's, a lot of that is due to Corey's ability in having that kind of expertise and having that, and that's where, we as a group were lucky, because it wasn't just, if it was just a bunch of guys like me, it would have been like my some other random idea that I never started, and then just a bunch of people not knowing, the other parts of it, and yeah, like you said, at some point you have to just go in, because you can't figure everything out,
Yeah.
right? Like the figure out as you go crowd, there, like you said, there's no shame in it, and at some point you have to do it though, because if you try to figure everything out, then the task seems insurmountable, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, we can never get over this. It's like
Yeah.
the risk is too great. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
we weren't trying to start a business.
So I want to talk about some difficulties that you all may have faced. You mentioned COVID, and I mean that has had just Similar and varied effects on food businesses depending on how they sell and what they're trying to do and what phase of their business they're at. And that's,
Yeah.
obviously for you guys, it's halted growth a little bit, as you mentioned, right? Trying to expand into new stores. Um,
Mhm.
what other difficulties have you run into? I know for some small businesses or for good food businesses, for example, finding the right co-packer can be difficult, can take a good amount of time, even if you are on the West Coast, which is a bit more progressive. Um,
Mhm.
with the food industry, and then distribution. Are you all running into any difficulties finding the right partners?
Yeah, for sure. It's so hard to find a person who wants to talk to you. 9 out of 10 of them don't call you back, you know. They don't want to waste their time. I understand why it's not a customer facing
Yeah,
business. That's not very approachable for regular people who don't have experience in it. So finding a co-packer is definitely one of the hardest things that we've done so far because we had to learn all about it,
yeah,
learn all about their process and how it worked for them and stuff. So we did. We finally found somebody that we feel good about working because there was the conversation in the beginning, you know, and that's how everything has happened so far through conversation and through meeting people and talking to people. Now we're just getting into distributors. I've had a few conversations with distributors, but I'm being picky there because I don't want to just be some other product that these guys are slugging around. Some
yeah.
dude doesn't know anything about it. He's got no connection to us. He's got no connection to the area, bringing us further away from where we want it to be. But we know every step we have to give up some amount of control.
Hmm.
But we'll wait. We could be selective because
Yeah.
we're not in a hurry to blow this thing up or do something. So we could be selective, and we're going to wait for um, uh, the right opportunity with the right distributor to come through, because it will be that conversation, like I said, that we'll end up having with the right person, and it's just gonna be like, okay, this is the way that we have to go with it because it makes the most sense from the way that we feel about it.
A couple more questions for you before we wrap up. As a person who lives in California and wants this Pennsylvania ketchup, I know from interfacing with your website that shipping is expensive for you all to do. Um,
Sure.
from your own site. And shipping is something that I am talking with my clients and program members about a lot right now, because there's been this sort of shift toward people just really having an expectation of free or significantly discounted shipping on products. And I know that that's not something that you offer, because it would just annihilate any profits that you do have for your product if you offered it for
Yeah.
free, or it would increase the price of your ketchup. You would just kind of have to offset it that way. Your ketchup would be, $14 a bottle or something like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and we actually, those are some of the conversations we had when we when we were deciding on the price,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
The MSRP. I just was like, I was stuck on 3.99. That's what we
Okay.
sell at retail. Corey actually wanted to be a little bit higher. He was like, "No, man, we should be at this because this is what these costs are broken down."
Yeah.
Um, and it still works at 3.99, like for our costs and things like that. But I was just like, it's hard enough for people in the valley to there's so much resistance to things that are well, I don't want to say from here, but like foreign as far as the accepted zeitgeist, you
Yeah.
know what is accepted in people's minds. So there was only so much somebody's paying for a bottle of ketchup.
Hmm.
3.99 was that. We used the post office, and the post office is a great institution. They happen to be actually the cheapest to ship 2 bottles of ketchup anywhere
Right.
in their flat rate box. So we take a small hit on shipping. We like charge 7 something, which used to be the cost of a small of single box, but now it's like 8.30.
Right.
So we never bumped up our price to like offset that.
Yeah.
But we don't sell a ton of ketchup online.
My question was going to be, do you find that to be a hindrance to your business? But it seems like it's not really a big factor for you
No,
guys.
not really for us. Like we realize, like for us as retail,
Yeah.
that's that is the only path forward to being a 100% financially successful. Because in terms of it being a product and an already being a catalyst for something else has been 100% successful.
Do you have an expectation on how far of a reach your brand can have being Pittston Ketchup?
So we're right in the middle of a rebrand right
Okay.
now. We're actually going to change. We're changing up our logo a bit.
Uh-huh.
Just kind of refreshing things. We're still going to keep the design of it and our message and stuff, but that is part of this next step. So like we will started looking, as you look back, they looked like steps.
Right.
Like when it was all happening, it was like, no, you don't really know what was going on, and it didn't seem like there was any kind of path. But then now we look back, we're like, yeah, that was how it was when we were at boutique retail shops. Then this kind of retail shops. Now we're looking to spread into a regional market.
Mm-hmm.
So we are trying to at least hone our message a little bit to still remain on, where we want it to be with, kind of paying tribute to the area and being an inspiration for people and being something positive that comes out of the valley.
Yeah.
And at the same time, spread into some of those other markets. Like we are right next to New York. Like that is no joke, so to reach some of those parts that now New York is spreading, the city is spreading out now, and it's been spreading out for years. Like despite of COVID-19, people have been going to these other places in upstate New York that they weren't 10 years ago because the opportunity is there, and they're making these little niches of pockets and places with cool shops and restaurants. And so we have access to that, so we're honing a little bit to kind of get into that, and regional at best. That's what we've always said. Regional at best. We want to be tri-state area, maybe up into New England a little more, but we have no aspirations of being in grocery stores down south and here and there.
And then my last question for you is, for anyone thinking about launching a business, a food business, or, maybe they've recently started it, any lessons learned or any advice that you have for them?
Just to be flexible.
Mm.
Just to, figure out why you're starting the business. Why are you doing it? Like, is the sauce that good that people need to have it? Is there a story behind it? Is there some way that somebody else could identify and connect with it? Because that's how people are buying food now. They're not buying it for the utility of the brand anymore. They're buying it for how they identify it with as a person and how it enhances their own brand of being a person. So, like, is there a story? Like just because it's good doesn't mean that it will sell. So I would say that just be flexible and be prepared to give up control.
I think that's great advice. I think that's really, really great advice. So on that note,
I would say the other only piece of advice I have is find the people to complement your areas where you're not good at. Like, I'm not a numbers guy, I'm a business guy. And you're like, well, Amos, to be a business guy, you'd have to be a numbers guy. It's like, you don't. Like the two could be mutually exclusive, and they are. So like, I think we've proven that, at least with what we've done so far.
Yeah. It seems like the three of you work together really well as a team. Even just reflecting back on the story about the price, you've got someone, Corey, who's got that financial background, who's looking at the numbers and saying our optimal price point is X. And you, as sort of the business guy, you come at it from a different angle and say, I see how those numbers work and I understand where you are coming from, but I understand the people and I understand business in a bit of a different way, and $3.99 is where we need to be at. And it's almost like, you could have, you could have landed at $3.99 without any financial information, and it could have all gone very badly. Right. But it's like when you do the work and you see it laid out and okay, if we do go with $3.99, this is the outcome. These are our margins and this is how many bottles we need to sell, to make X number of dollars a year and blah, blah, blah. Then it's an informed decision rather than just a gut instinct. And there's a big difference between the two. So that's important. Yeah.
And I think maybe one last piece of advice I would have for anyone starting a food business is get used to people telling you that it's terrible too, right to your face. You know, you have to be ready for that level of rejection.
Mm,
Can't take it personal.
yeah.
Somebody tries it and they like recoil, and you're like, man, it's not that bad, but like, you
They're
can't
like,
say that.
they're like, where's the sugar? This isn't,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, right.
Oh,
We've had people tell us that right to our face, like,
man.
oh, it's disgusting. You're like, okay, thanks for trying it. You know,
Yeah, have a nice day.
thanks for
Thank
trying
you.
it.
Brutal. But
Yeah.
those are three very, very good pieces of advice. I think whether you're in the food business or any kind of business, I think. Amos, I've really enjoyed spending time with you. I think we've been talking for almost an hour and a half, which is kind of crazy because I feel like I would ask more questions and I would want to know more about your business. I think it started from a really fun place, but then it has very strategic bones and foundation to it. And I just admire the way that the three of you are growing the business and taking it step by step. It's a combination of great story and I think great purpose combined with, strategic financial approach, which is like all the best things coming together. So I wish you guys the best of luck. I will
Thank you so much,
continue,
Sarah. We
yeah,
appreciate it.
I'll continue filling my fridge with your ketchup, and I'm excited to see the rebrand. Thank you so much. As I said,
Thank
I
you.
super enjoyed this. And for anybody who wants to learn more about Pittston Ketchup Company and their story, we will link to their website in the show notes. And I'm excited to follow your journey. Thank you
Thanks.
again. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Have
See
a
ya.
good one.
Bye.